So there's this ongoing song, One Man, 1 Shilling. And anytime it comes on, I usually get lost. I usually get frustrated with our leaders. But today I want to talk about Nyeri County. We have 47 counties, but I want to focus on Nyeri. Because when we get into this conversation of 1 man, 1 shilling, we have this hard mentality where we think like Mount Kenya and then Rift Valley, or we think like the Kikuyus, and you have all manner of reasons as to why people focus on 1 man, 1 shilling, and they support it. So today we want to debunk what is this 1 man, 1 shilling. And like I said, I'm focusing on Nyeri County. However, the maths that we do today, you can use them for your own county, and then you can have a stand based on facts and not conjecture. Now, we'll start with something Kenya National Bureau of Statistics did, which was the census 2019. So they gave us some numbers. They gave us county numbers, they gave us population numbers, they gave us all manner of numbers. But then there's this obsession with the tribal numbers. So we like to know how many Kikuyus are there, how many Kalenjins, how many Luyas, and this is how our leaders think. This is how the Nyeri people think when it comes to 1 man, 1 shilling. And I'll read to you some numbers census gave us. So the Kikuyu are 8.14 million, the Luya 6.82, Kalenjin 6.35, and the list goes on. Somalis are number 6 at 2.78, Kisis 2.7, and then number 10 is the Maasai at 1.19 million. Now, for some reason, the tyranny of numbers, all these narratives our politicians have put in our minds make us think that this is how government money is divided. This is wrong. There is nowhere in the history of Kenya we've ever used those numbers to divide our money. So which data do we use when dividing money? So we use county population. And today we will look at two major funds that come to Wanjiko Mashinani. We will look at how money is divided among the counties, the 47 counties, and then we will look at your NGCDF. And then we will start to unpack all these conversation around 1 man, 1 shilling. In there is IEBC, which has been given the mandate up to February 2024 to delimit boundaries. So where is this conversation heading? Now, for us to understand how counties get money, I'll take you back to 2020 when we had a stalemate in the Senate. Now, this stalemate was because of the introduction of the third generation CRA formula. Now, counties get money based on a formula. So we sat down and came up with parameters like land area, basic share, population, county population, and so forth. So we don't use population as one parameter. But when we say 1 man, 1 shilling, we are assuming that money should be divided based on one parameter, which is population. Now I'll show you the maths for Nyeri and why Nyeri County should avoid 1 man, 1 shilling song or narrative. Now this formula and the stalemate came about because some counties, with that new formula, some counties were losing funds and some counties were gaining. In fact, the Mount Kenya counties were gaining at that point. And if you remember, you could see the northeastern counties were rejecting the formula, while the Mount Kenya counties were confused. I'll say confused because you could see some supporting and others not supporting. But the northeastern senators were rejecting that formula. Why? See, at this point, the county population index had been split. So before it was 45% at the second generation formula, and then it was split into 3 components. One was still county population at 18%. Then we now had a new parameter for health function at 17%, and then agriculture at 10%. Now remember, Northeastern versus Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya has more health facilities, so they were gaining on that parameter, and they are an agricultural zone, so they were gaining on that parameter, which is why on the other side they were losing. But our leaders did not understand that. They knew we were gaining, but they did not understand that we were gaining when the county population index reduced, not increased. when we went into functions. Now, when counties get this money and the stalemate was over, so they came up with a formula that is a little bit complex. So we'll do another video on that formula. But for today, if you want to understand or know how much your county is getting from the Equitable share, then you go online and then you look for the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2022, and then you go and look at your county. Now for Nyeri, for the financial year 2022-2023, we are getting 6.2 billion based on that formula. 6.2 billion for this financial year. Now this is where I've said the formula uses different parameters. Now we'll do some maths based on county population and 1 man 1 shilling to see, would we get more or would we get less? Now take out your pen and paper and let's see. Now remember, this is standard 2 mathematics. Okay, so 1 man 1 shilling means your parameter is population. Okay, and so to understand for Nyeri and the 1 man 1 shilling, then you take county population over Kenya's population times the amount of money the counties were dividing for this financial year, which is 370 billion. It's that simple. So our county population for Nyeri is 760,000 averagely, over 47.6 million Kenyans times 370 billion, and that gives you 5.9 billion. Now remember, with the formula currently we are getting 6.2 billion. So 1 man 1 shilling gives us 5.9 billion. With the formula we get 6.2 billion. This is a loss for Nyeri for around 300 million per year. This is what we would lose per year if we did the 1 man 1 shilling conversation. And this is why I'm saying, if you do these maths for every county, then the answer is different. There are counties that will gain, there are counties that will lose. But then the argument is that, you know, if another Kikuyu gains, let's say in Kiambu, then I'm okay here in Nyeri. But let's look at what this means. When you lose 300 million per year, this affects service delivery. And let me bring it down home. If I, Nelson, who comes from Karogoto, gets sick, my first point of contact is not Kiambu. I'll run to Karogoto dispensary. Then they may refer me to a health center, refer me to Karatina Sub-County Hospital, or refer me to PGH Nyeri, who will refer me to a level 6 that is in Othaya. At no point have I gone to Kiambu, which has gained. So when we agree, and our leaders are there pushing the 1 man 1 shilling narrative, which will lead to Nyeri losing 300 million per year, then this affects me directly on service delivery. So what do we propose? Then we propose that when we use county population for Mount Kenya, and especially Nyeri, we lose. But when we split these into functions like health, agriculture, we saw Nyeri gaining on this. Now let's talk about NGCDF. Now, unlike counties, NGCDF went a whole different direction. So they basically divide money equally. So the law says it's 2.5% of national government share of revenue. What does this mean? Now, remember, when we are sharing revenue between the levels of government, we have the national government share and then we have the county government share. A point to note here is that there's a reason why MPs always reject a notion where the counties get more money. Why? Because the more you increase this goes down. And remember, NGCDF is calculated on this national government share of revenue. So when you increase money going to counties, you decrease the share of revenue for national government, which means NCDF shrinks. However, how do they divide this money? Let's take an assumption of 50 billion. So 50 billion is the NGCDF money. So previously what they have done is very simple. Take 50 billion divided by the 290 constituencies, and everyone gets an equal share. This is what many people are rejecting as and bringing around the 1 man, 1 shilling. Because some constituencies are small, some are big, some are populous, some are less populated. And so what in this financial year they did for NGCDF, now they decided to change this a little bit. So 75% of this 50 billion is divided equally. And then the balance of 25% is determined by the number of wards. Now, what does this mean? Now, the law again means the smallest constituency has 3 wards, and the largest constituency has about 8 wards. So when this maths was done, about 21 constituencies, which have 3 wards, did not gain from this money. But then the bigger constituencies with more wards now gained from this money. And so this financial year, the money is not being divided equally. There is now a formula towards the number of wards. Now, why is this interesting? A few weeks ago, you saw Honorable Gathoni wa Mushomba introduce a bill in Parliament that they want to look at the number of wards based on a certain population quotient. What are they looking at? It's the number of wards. And so if a constituency is deemed to have more wards from this bill, then they'll get more NGCDF funds. And then the constituencies with lesser wards will get less. But why is this dangerous again for Nyeri County? Remember, no matter how you slice this bread, our 760,000 population does not change. Whether you get the numbers at ward level, at constituency level, at county level, they will always add up to 760,000. Meaning in terms of population, we will lose. Now, today, as Nyeri County exists, we have protected constituencies. Protected meaning either Mokoroini, Tetu, or Othaya, we would lose them based on the population quotient given by the Constitution. So they are protected constituencies. In fact, if today we were to stick with what the Constitution says, Nyeri County would lose 1 constituency, meaning that even when this conversation goes down to the ward level, then we are likely to lose wards. Now, why is this important? Again, remember IEBC is delimiting boundaries. Delimiting means they are reviewing the boundaries, and this is in the Constitution. Every 8 to 12 years, they must do this, and they have a deadline of February 2024. Now remember, every new ward we get comes with expenses. It comes with a new MCA, offices, and all that. And so this conversation needs to change. Is it about Mwananchi or is it about politicians? My thinking is that politicians push us to this narrative because, well, the more boundaries we have and wards and constituencies, the more of them who get into that position. But bringing it home, there's this conversation about how much Garissa gives its students for bursary versus what Mount Kenya gets. And you'll find a student in Garissa getting a whole scholarship, whereas in Mount Kenya, then we give them 3,000, 2,000 per student. But then will adding constituencies and wards solve this problem? Our proposal this morning is that we should maybe look at this parameter. Now, NGCDF comes with already instructions. So there is a percentage that goes to bursaries, a percentage for sports, a percentage for administration, and so forth. Now, taking our example of 50 billion, assuming then half goes to bursaries, then why don't our MPs come up with a parameter, just like the counties have done with health and agriculture? And then you say, then we will use these 25 billion and then use the number of students in schools, number of schools, number of public schools, just use those parameters to divide the money. And then what you'll discover is the constituency with most students will get more money in the NGCDF going to bursaries. But when we go back to this conversation about getting more wards and more constituencies, then that comes with more MPs, that comes with more car grants, more of everything, which is what we want to run away from. And if your politicians don't really understand all these maths, then how are government decisions made?